Time is and will always be of the essence in all areas of life. And nowhere is this more evident than that of the day in and out roles of a healthcare professional. Now, your role really is to make sure that your patients feel supported, heard, listened to, understood, and give them the solution that they are looking for. However, the real challenge is that not only are you working in settings and environments that are severely under-resourced, but you're also under a very, very strong time constraint and pressure. So in this video, I'm going to explore what are some strategies that healthcare professionals from any field in healthcare can incorporate in order to make the most of short and fast consultations with their patients. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me every week, as you always do. My name is Shweta. I'm the founder of Healthy Dynamics. We are a coaching practice that helps healthcare professionals from non-English speaking backgrounds become more empathetic, effective, and collaborative communicators, build influence, impact, and authority, and achieve personal and professional excellence in the process. So briefly, what I touched on in last week's video was about why healthcare professionals are losing patients are losing trust in healthcare professionals. And one of the reasons I mentioned is the lack of time that everyone faces. Now, let's face it, we all live in a very fast-paced world where everything is go, go, go. People have, a million commitments, a million responsibilities, and sometimes people don't really pause. They don't have really the time to pause and take inventory and reflect and look after themselves. And this is particularly evident when you are a patient or when you are a healthcare professional. Any one of you working would tell me how much under the pump you are. And this becomes even more apparent when you are in consultation with a patient. So whether you are, say, a GP who has to see multiple patients every single day and you probably have only 10 or 15 minutes, you could also be, say, a technician like a sonographer or a radiographer or an MRI technician. Again, your window, again, of seeing patients is a very quick turnaround or every single time. And these are just some of the two examples that I can think of. So even in that short amount of time, it is imperative that you really make a good impression on the patient and serve them and support them in the best way possible. That really builds that trust and keeps them coming back for more. Now, I do admit these aspects are very challenging, and it will take you some time and effort and practice for you to 100% get it right. But just this from my experience, being working in healthcare settings and also having been a patient in a GP setting and many other places, these are the conclusions that I have come to that you can really incorporate. And there's a very simple techniques as well that you can make changes to that can really develop a positive impact on the patient and your rapport with them. So let's get straight into it. Number one is maximize patient talking time. Now, if you remember one of my past LinkedIn posts, which I can leave the screenshot of over here, I mentioned in that when I was an oversharer and in that process when I would do that, I would just keep on talking. And at that time, when I was working as an English as a second language teacher, it just defeated the purpose, because the whole point of me being a teacher of a language is so that I can get students to communicate and express themselves and articulate as much as possible. And it was not really an option if I was doing all the talking. Now, there's obviously that element of active listening, which I talk about all the time. But really, the essence that I'm trying to get to over here is that you need to make sure that the patient is expressing themselves, articulating themselves, and taking up as much space as possible. So, and you have to not only listen actively, but also be really engaged and really present. Now, I know that when you are in consultation, you have to take notes and manage paperwork at the same time. And sometimes maintaining that eye contact and having that positive body language when you're working with the patient can definitely be challenging. However, see if you can explore some sort of AI tools that you can use when you are in consultation, and you can, if there's a summary of something that you can incorporate. I've been using the app Fathom. That's really good for any sort of Zoom calls or any online meetings that I take on for my clients or anything else, and it's brilliant. So if there's something similar to that, if you can incorporate that, just so that you're fully focused and engaged with the patient who's coming to you and looking for solutions and answers, that would be the best bet. But yeah, it doesn't change the fact that you have to absolutely be engaged and present and involved at that time, and focus on the patient and giving them as much space as much as possible. And also important equally is to also ask open-ended questions. Now this will obviously we'll look at this a little bit more in the second point, but yeah, open-ended questions are a big one. So what can normally happen is that when you are in consultation with a patient, and this is a slightly different tangent, but I'll cover it anyway. A lot of healthcare professionals, they tend to ask the patient, how are you feeling today? What is your illness? What is your sickness today? And that can be quite a disempowering statement in many ways. So instead of doing that, you can use a much more personalized and humanistic way in which you can connect with your patient. So you can keep it quite generic. You can ask, how are you feeling today? Or what can I assist you or support you with today? That really builds that foundation of a really good trust, and also breaks down any sort of awkwardness or barriers or any nervousness or anxiety that the patient might experience. Now, when going back to open-ended questions, so instead of asking, what can I do for you today, you can then filter the question down. Instead of asking a question that just gives them a yes or no, you just get a yes or no answer in response to it. So an example of that could be, are you taking your medication? Yes or no. Are you sleeping properly? Yes or no. Are you exercising? Yes or no. Not saying don't ask that, but on top of that, it's very important that you ask engaging and in-depth open-ended questions. For example, things like, what's the most important thing you'd like to understand today? What is it that you're hoping to get out of our consultation today? What are some ways in which you would like me as your healthcare provider to support you and guide you in the process? Now, for example, one of my current clients at the moment, who's an ophthalmologist, she always begins her consultations by asking, can you tell me what worries you about your vision most nowadays? So by asking that, instead of asking them what's happened to your vision, it's a much better question. So she's showing the fact that she cares and is empathetic with the patient about what they're experiencing, and also she understands that they are feeling worried, and that again, it gives patients the space to express their fears and set the stage for a focused, trust-based dialogue. The next point I would like to bring up in making the most of your short consultations is, think of it like a mini story. So a lot of my content on LinkedIn and even on YouTube is very story-based. So any sort of story, it starts with what the beginning is, which is the introduction. So the patient is introducing you to the challenge that they have, and then you move on to the main body, which is your explanation. You ask more open-ended and deep questions, and you summarize it in the very end with a conclusion as to what the next steps will be. And this is a good sort of little transcript that you can have next time you are in consultation with a patient. So, just asking in the very end, especially if you are in the technical space, so say even if you're a nuclear medicine technician or a mammogram technician, it's the same thing. So in the very end of when the scan has been completed, you can ask the patient, how did that feel for you? Did you experience any discomfort? Did you experience anything that you'd like to share with me? So you're getting that feedback instantly, but at the same time, it's a good way to, I think, wrap up and summarize your interaction, not instead of just going on to the very next patient that comes along and who's waiting in the line. The next one I would say would be, and I cover this quite a lot in my coaching, is simplifying complex information. So obviously, when a healthcare professional is working with a patient who can sometimes not be fully aware or can be less informed in that process, in that situation, instead of using very complicated terms such as intraocular pressure, you can say something like the pressure inside your eye. Or say, for example, cerebrospinal fluid, you can just say the fluid that surrounds your central nervous system, for example. And so sometimes what you can also say you're trying to explain the risk of glaucoma. So you can do things like, you can use an analogy or something like, think of your eye like a garden hose. If the water pressure gets too high, it can damage the hose. So you have to maintain a pressure so that your vision stays clear. And similarly, when a patient, say for example, has keratoconus, which is a much more severe form of eye deformity and vision impairment. So in that case, using a picture or a chart or a live model or a diagram can be really, really good. Again, the patient can clearly illustrate, they can see and understand where the challenge is and where the problem is. So instead of going into a long explanation, using these little hacks and these little tips can be absolutely beneficial in saving time as well as getting through the information that is required. And lastly, is very important that you summarize and confirm the patient's understanding. So ending each session by summarizing the key points and asking the patient if they have any further questions. And also what the next steps would be for the treatment plan, whether the next follow-up appointment if is required, or any sort of steps that the patient will need to do at home in order for them to continue with their care and treatment would be a good one. And always make sure that you're ending your interaction on a positive note. And something like, you can say you've progressed really well from last time. I'm very pleased with the recovery that you have made. This is what my surgeon told me last month when I had my left clavicle operated, and now, last time when I had my consultation with him last month post-operation, that's what he said, that he's very pleased with the way that I not only has how quickly it has healed the surgery that I had, but also how well I've been keeping up with my exercises and the physiotherapy regime. So again, that left me feeling supported and hopeful, and I think it's something that regardless of where you are in healthcare, it can be very, very beneficial to you. So these are some of the ways in which you can make the most of short and brief interactions with patients, and when you have quick consultations. These are some of the ways in which you can make the most of them, whilst still building a positive impact on your patients and building that trust, authority, and credibility. To stay tuned for more content on how you can be a better healthcare professional and communicate better with your patients, make sure that you hit the subscribe button on this channel and the notification bell. Like the video if you do truly like it, and leave your thoughts and comments in the box below on what this video taught you or anything that you got out of it. I would love to hear your feedback. And thank you very much for your time, presence, and attention, and I shall see you next week.